All right, welcome everyone. We're diving deep into a world of Vikings this time.
Norse legends, epic quests, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Specifically, we're looking at the saga of Thrain the Fearless. The story takes place in, well, classic Viking territory. Think like eternal winters, fierce seas, that kind of vibe.
And at the heart of it all is Thrain, a young warrior facing, well, some pretty massive challenges.
Right, right. And it's not just like swinging an axe and raiding villages, though there's definitely some of that. It's about a quest for this mythical blade, a journey that really tests him, not just physically, but like his very soul, you know?
It definitely has that classic hero's journey structure.
Mm.
But what makes it so interesting, I think, is how it weaves in all this Norse mythology and Viking culture.
Yeah, it's like it's not just a fantastical adventure. It's a window into a world where I don't know, gods and monsters and human struggles, they all kind of like collide.
They do.
And it all kicks off with this dream, but not your average, I ate too much cheese before bed kind of dream.
No, no. This is the big leagues.
Thrain gets a vision from Odin himself.
And for a Viking, that's not just like, a weird Tuesday night.
Right. It's a huge deal.
Absolutely. I mean, this is
Wow.
Odin, king of the gods, god of wisdom, war, destiny. To get a vision from him, that'd be like, getting a direct message from the universe, a sign that that you're chosen for something extraordinary and maybe, potentially terrifying.
Yeah, no kidding. And in Thrain's case, the message is pretty dire. Odin warns him about this catastrophic storm, like it's going to wipe out his whole village.
Yeah, talk about pressure. And the only way to stop it, according to Odin, is to find this legendary blade of Hrafn.
So that's where that hero's journey really kicks in. Thrain, he has to leave everything behind, his home, his family, his love Astrid, and head out into, well, basically the unknown. It's like a call to adventure he just can't ignore. The fate of his entire community rests on his shoulders.
It really highlights that idea of individual action tied to, the fate of the collective, which, for Vikings, that was a pretty big deal.
Totally. Think about the weight of that responsibility, right? I mean, this young warrior, he's standing there on the edge of this quest, knowing that everyone he loves, their lives depend on him succeeding.
And to make it even more intense, right before he sets off, the village seer casts runes, and they foretell both glory and doom.
Oh, man. So it's like hope and uncertainty all mixed up together.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the Vikings really knew how to write a good movie trailer, even back then.
Uh-huh, right. But it definitely gets you hooked, right from the start. And the story, it's not just about finding this magical weapon. It's about those challenges of leadership, the burdens of responsibility, and the choices that we make when we're facing, well, impossible odds.
Right. What do you do when everything's on the line?
Mm-hmm.
How do you even begin to make those decisions?
Yeah. And it all starts with Thrain setting sail. He's got his loyal warriors with him, and they head out into those icy, unforgiving seas.
It's a pretty powerful image,
Yeah.
It really gets at that Viking spirit, the courage, their connection to the sea, and that willingness to face anything head on.
Oh, absolutely. But okay, so they're off on this epic quest. But what exactly is this blade of Hrafn? I mean, is it just like a really cool sword, or is there more to it?
That's a great question, and it's something we're going to dig into a lot more as we go. But yeah, the Blade of Hrafn, it's not just a weapon. It's a symbol of power, sure, but it's also a source of mystery and potential danger. The saga hints at a price to be paid for wielding it, and that raises some pretty big questions about the nature of power and its consequences.
So it sounds like this blade is more than just a sharp piece of metal, right? Like it represents something deeper, something about the Viking view of strength, destiny, maybe even the relationship between humans and the gods.
Yeah, you're picking up on something there. And, to really understand the blade, I think we have to understand the trials that Thrain faces on his journey. These aren't just, random obstacles. They're tests designed to reveal his character and kind of shape him into the leader he's supposed to be.
Right, right. So it's almost like we're not just following Thrain's quest for the blade. We're diving into the heart of Viking culture, exploring their beliefs, their values, and their understanding of what it truly means to be a hero. And this is where things get really interesting.
Remember those icy seas we're talking about, the unforgiving ones?
Yeah, definitely not a pleasure cruise.
Well, right off the bat, Thrain and his crew, they find themselves battling those very elements. Icy waters, you name it.
So storms,
Mm.
Rough seas. I bet that did wonders for morale.
Yeah, not exactly. And for Vikings, battling the elements, it wasn't just about physical hardship. They believed those forces, those natural forces, were connected to the gods.
So a raging storm, that's not just bad luck.
Right. It could be a sign that, say, Njord, the god of the sea, wasn't too pleased with them.
Makes you wonder if they ever thought, maybe Odin should have picked someone else for this job.
Uh-huh, maybe. But they push through. They finally make landfall on this fog-shrouded island, a place that's, well, rumored to be home to giants.
Okay, giants. Now this is where things start to feel like a proper myth.
Right. It's getting good. And it's on this island that Thrain has his first real encounter with, well, a creature that Vikings, they really feared. The Draugr.
Yeah, the source material described it as like an undead warrior guarding a tomb, but I'm guessing it's a bit more than just, a spooky skeleton.
Oh, for sure. See, for Vikings, the Draugr, it wasn't just some monster. It represented the past, those unresolved issues, grudges, maybe even the fear of ancestors judging your actions.
It's like a walking, well, I guess a walking corpse embodiment of everything they were trying to, leave behind.
Exactly. So to even have a chance at finding this blade, Thrain, he has to literally confront his past, face those fears head on.
Intense. So it's all part of this transformation he's going through. Each trial is shaping him, pushing him to be that leader, right?
Right. And it's not just about the drug. He overcomes that challenge but doesn't find the blade right away.
Hmm.
Instead, he meets this hermit who it turns out was a shield maiden.
A warrior woman turned recluse. That's quite a change. What's her story?
It's pretty fascinating. She becomes this really crucial guide for Thrain. Not just like pointing him in the right direction, but she helps him understand the blade of Hrafn, its true nature.
So what does she reveal about it? We already know there's a price to pay for using it.
She tells Thrain that the blade, it demands more than just, brute strength.
Mm-hmm.
It requires a heart that's completely free of fear, totally dedicated to its purpose. And, Vikings, they loved a good warrior, but they also valued a clear head.
Someone who could think strategically, not just, swing a sword around.
Exactly. A leader who can make the tough calls. So this blade, it's almost like it's testing Thrain's character.
It's not enough to be strong. You have to be worthy.
Right. And the journey itself, all of it, it's like the ultimate test. The storms, the Draugr, this hermit giving cryptic advice, it's all pushing Thrain to face his weaknesses, become the kind of leader who, doesn't just take power, but really gets what it means to wield it.
So where does all this newfound wisdom lead him next?
Well, following the hermit's guidance, they end up going into this cursed forest. And this is where things get really symbolic. We're talking dark, twisted woods, packs of wolves, magical traps, that kind of thing. Classic imagery for facing your inner demons.
So it's not just the physical dangers anymore, it's the psychological ones too.
Exactly. Think about it. This forest, it's like it embodies Thrain's doubts,
Yeah.
his fears about the mission, maybe even about becoming the leader he's supposed to be. The blade is hidden here, but he has to overcome all that inner turmoil before he can even get to it.
He really is going through it, huh?
Yeah.
But does he find it? Does he find the blade?
He does. But it's not easy. He has to face this vision of his deepest fears,
Mm-hmm.
failure, betrayal, death of everyone he loves. It's like the forest itself is trying to break him.
So this is where all that inner strength he's been building, that resolve, it all comes into play.
Exactly. And he pushes through. He doesn't give up. And finally, the blade of Hrafn, it appears like it's acknowledging his victory. But as he grasps it, this voice echoes, "The price for power is steep. What are you willing to sacrifice?" Chilling stuff.
Huh, yeah. Talk about a cliffhanger. We knew there was a price, but hearing it like that, out loud, it just adds this whole other level of suspense. So what did he sacrifice? And what does it mean for him now that he has this incredibly powerful weapon? So Thrain, he finally returns home, right? Blade of Hrafn, check. Ready to save his village, but, well, not exactly the welcome parade he might have been picturing.
Nope. Finds it in ruins, completely ravaged. A rival clan decided to pay a visit.
Oh, man. Talk about a hero's homecoming. While he's off, battling sea monsters and stuff, the real world just keeps on turning.
And not always for the better, right? It really drives home that constant sense of threat the Vikings lived under. Even when you achieve some, personal victory,
Yeah.
there's always another battle waiting.
Yeah. But now he's got this weapon, this incredibly powerful weapon. What does he do? Does he just, unleash the full fury of the Blade of Hrafn on these invaders?
Well, he does what any Viking hero worth their salt would do. He rallies the survivors, and they prepare for battle. I mean, remember, warfare, it was deeply ingrained in their society.
Right, right. It wasn't just about like conquering and stuff. It was about protecting what was theirs, their people, their land, their whole way of life.
Exactly. And so the Blade of Orlson, it finally comes into play. We see it in action. And, well, let's just say the saga doesn't hold back on the descriptions.
It's like a force of nature. I mean, what's it actually like to see this thing in action?
Pretty devastating. Thrain leads his people to victory, and the blade, it's clear, it's got some serious power behind it. But this is where things get really, well, I guess you could say complicated.
It's not just the physical toll, right? That warning, that price to pay for power. It starts to become pretty clear.
You got it. Something's happening to Thrain. We don't know the specifics of what he sacrificed, but wielding the blade, it's changing him somehow.
Yeah, yeah. It's like it's testing him even as he's using it. Like, can he hold on to his humanity, his compassion, even with all that power at his fingertips?
That's the core of the dilemma, I think. Vikings, they weren't just mindless berserkers. They admired strength, sure, but they also valued wisdom, fairness, a leader who could make good decisions.
Right, right. So the blade, it's almost like a dark mirror, right? Reflecting back a twisted version of those ideals.
I like that. So the big question, does Thrain give in? Does he become a tyrant? Ruling through fear and all that.
Well, does he spill the beans?
He makes a choice.
Yeah.
And it's a choice that I think says a lot about what Vikings truly value. He lays down the blade of wrath. He gives it up.
Wow, really? He just gives up that ultimate power.
He does. And it's, well, it's pretty unexpected. Most stories would have him, become this unstoppable warrior king.
Right, exactly. So what's the message here?
I think it's saying that true strength, true leadership, it's not about wielding a magical weapon or, ruling through force. It's about wisdom. It's about those tough choices, even when it means sacrificing something you want for, for the greater good.
So Thrain, he chooses peace over power. He chooses to lead with, well, with wisdom instead of fear.
Exactly. And that's a pretty powerful idea, even today, don't you think?
Absolutely. The saga of Thrain the Fearless might be fictional, but it gives us this really interesting glimpse into Viking culture, their beliefs, their struggles, what it meant to be a hero for them.
And it leaves us with some pretty big questions to ponder, right?
Yeah, it does. What did Thrain sacrifice for that blade? Was giving it up the most courageous thing he could have done? This deep dive might be over, but I have a feeling those questions, they're going to stick with us for a while.